better? You don't. I'll get around to that tomorrow.
Are you guys ready?
All right. Okay, I have 4:31, and at this time we will call the meeting of the Canyon City Commission to order. And with that, Mr. Ray, would you please?
Father, we are come before you today grateful for our community, and grateful that you have chosen us to live here. Father, I just ask that you continue to protect our community. Ask a special blessing on the staff that works for the city. Father, bless them and their families, and I pray for protection for our first responders, and I thank you for the hard work that they do. Father, thank you for taking us through this pandemic, and Father, I pray that you will just end it quickly, and so that things can get back to normal. Again, Father, we are grateful that we live in Canyon, Texas, and we ask for your wisdom today. In your name we pray. Amen.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, that takes us to the approval of the minutes of the meeting of June 21st, 2021. Have those before us.
No changes, I'll move with it.
Have a motion and a second to approve the minutes as written. All in favor signify by raising your right hand. All opposed, like sign. Motion passes.
Mayor, may I confirm that Commissioner Ward is the second? Yes, please.
That takes us to item number 5, public comments from interested citizens. Do we have anybody signing?
No.
Item number 6 is to consider and take appropriate action on second and final reading of resolution number 21-2021, a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Canyon approving a project funding agreement between Mass Hotels LLC and Canyon Economic Development Corporation relating to funding a hotel project and job creation incentives for a New Hampton Inn and Suites to be located at 3101 4th Avenue. Presented, I think I see Mr. Lee here today. So
You've done all the talking for me.
there you go. That's right.
I'll just stand up here and try to remain upright. So the CEDC met on April the 8th, and we looked at a request from Mass Hotel Group, which was approved. As you say, Gary, it's for site development and 30+ new jobs. The public hearing was held on May the 13th, and there was no opposition to the funding. The total amount of the incentive package is $485,000, $250,000 for infrastructure, $235,000 roughly for job creation. And that's, I think it's a $9 million project, probably 10 now, maybe 11, who knows? And our part of the project would be 5%. Any questions for me?
All right. Any questions? All right. Thank you, Don. Then with that, I would entertain a motion. If there are not any further questions.
I'll make a motion we approve resolution 21-.
Have a motion and second to approve resolution number 21-2021. All in favor signify by raising your right hand. Opposed, like sign. The motion passes.
The dirt work has commenced. It does have a truck driven by there, so they have started this thing.
Item number 7 is first reading of resolution number 25-2021, a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Canyon approving the project funding agreement between Texas Panhandle Heritage Foundation and Canyon Economic Development Corporation relating to quality of life enhancements for area residents. Don?
We met on May the 13th to look at this funding request from the Texas Panhandle Heritage Foundation. The request was to assist in audio system upgrades at the amphitheater to support the musical production Texas. Overall cost of the upgrade is $210,000. The Harrington Foundation and the MS Doss Foundation each pledged $75,000. That left a balance of $60,000, which the CEDC approved to cover. And that buys stage microphones front of the house as well as outreach programs, whatever that all means. The public hearing was held on June the 10th. There was no opposition to the project. This is the first reading and there's no action required. Unless you have questions.
Have you heard how things are going out there in Texas this summer?
You know, Evelyn got some numbers, but she was a little reluctant to share them because she wasn't sure how many rainouts they've had. So we're not sure if we couldn't really tell what that meant. So I think it's going well, but the rain obviously plays havoc with it sometimes, which, well, when you live in wet country like this, it's just something we gotta deal with.
It's green and beautiful out there. You know, it's kind of hard to complain on that.
True.
All right. Then there is no action required, all right, on that. I think Dawn's up for the next item 2, item number 8. First reading of resolution number 26-2021, a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Canyon approving a project funding agreement between Rudettes LLC and Canyon Economic Development Corporation relating to business retention and expansion.
CEDC met on May 13th to consider a funding request from Avery Pinkerton and Colette Lane, who are the owners of Rudettes. This is to assist them in the relocation of their business to a larger property at 416 15th Street. They're going from 850 square feet to 1,440 square feet. They're set to move in the end of August. They've been open since 2017. Overall project cost is $84,750. The CEDC is in for $30,000. They have a 5-year lease at the new location. The public hearing was held on June 10th. There was no opposition to the project. Once again, this is a first reading.
Any questions for Dawn on this? All right, thank you, Dawn.
Yes, sir.
All right, well, that then takes us to item number 9, consider and take appropriate action on Canyon Community Investment Plan and associated CIP ranking criteria. John, looks like you're presenting.
There's a memo in there for me, but the presentation is going to be made by Venetia Patel. She's our intern. She is a graduate from Amarillo and currently attends Duke University and has been with us since first of the summer and doing an internship. And we have been allowing her to do quite a few things, thank goodness. And she's checking out the departments and going different places. She's ridden with the police department. She'll be riding with going out and checking out the water system and our sewer system, all of those systems too, to learn of those. I think we've shown her a lot. And as we started working on the CIP, I've asked her to take the lead on the development of forums and all of those things. Joe would come up with some forums and some different places for us to look at, and we looked at those, and we spent quite a bit of time going through those, trying to create forms that would work for us. So she's going to take you through a PowerPoint. We'll give you a little bit of history of the CIP, why we're doing it, and the information. Some of it she's going to go over is inside the folder that's in front of you. So I'll let you take it away.
Thank you. So today I will be going over the Canyon Community Investment Plan, and that is a capital improvement program. So a capital improvement program, or CIP, is essentially a long-range plan that will contain capital projects for the next 5 years. The final CIP document will contain the list of projects, their construction and completion schedules, and financing plans. So why is the CIP even necessary? In the recent years, Canyon's bond rating has decreased slightly. Other cities with sound financial practices often utilize the CIP, and based on the research I've done, I think a CIP could help bring Canyon's bond rating back up. Also, it'll serve as a point of accountability, and it will help bridge city commission, management, and departmental goals. So there are several parts to a CIP, but generally it will contain a list of the projects, their numbers or IDs, funding sources, and their financing plans, as well as other details. So the CIP is meant to be reviewed annually. So over the year, or mainly in the beginning of the year, projects will be submitted for consideration to the CIP. In October through December, city management and the finance director will review all of the projects and select the ones that they would like to include in the 5-year CIP. In January, they will be reviewed again with the directors and the assistant city manager. In February through March, the funding sources will be finalized. In April through May, the recommended CIP will be presented to the City Commission. In June through September, the council will discuss and adopt with the first year funding along with the budget. And in October, the projects will be authorized to expend those funds. So,
Everybody comprehend that? We need to recap
That's
that.
pretty important. It might not hurt to yell it up there just a second.
Ultimately, if we hypothetically say we start in October, so we would work October to December to finalize, get those projects ready, see how much money, Joel and I would see how much money we have left over in surplus at the end of the year that's not going to our reserve fund. Then we try to look at projects that we can field with those funds, as well as those that are direct funded from the budget. There will be some projects that are direct from the budget. It's currently happening now. And then we'll go through that process and prioritize, and then ultimately around that following next June through September is when you would adopt it, and then that next October is when those would be bid out, scheduled for. So there's like a year lag there, right, in terms of that.
And Joe, bottom line, and you got it up there, but city commission does have input in
Yes.
this too. And
Yes.
if there's, I know we've got the ranking criteria, but at the end of the day, if there's something that the city commission says, gosh, this one really is important.
We do, and that's where that process can be. The ultimate way this is going to work, Commission, is we have our annual budget we've been doing since the beginning of time. Well, we're going to bring you a capital budget. So capital and annual budget will be together. So you'll have two separate budgets. The difference is the capital budget goes over 5 years that Venetia just indicated. Well, annual budget is October 1 through September 30. So it has an open and close date. While the capital can be funded over multiple years. So the saving up for projects, as Canyon has traditionally been with, save and pay as you go type project, that can take 3, 5, 10 years sometimes, even beyond the 5 years, to save up to fund for that project. So we can't expect, if Dan needed a new lift station, is going to cost $1 million. That's a hard one to save up in 1 year. So that may have to cover 2 to 3 years. And that's where the annual budget can cover multiple annual budgets versus just being a one and done, like the annual budget is. So, and we would reevaluate that every year, and Venetia's going to get into that. But yeah, we'll get, and I probably would need to the end of October to see what the receivables are in terms of our fund for the previous fiscal year to get an idea of what we're working with. And we need a dollar amount of what we're working with, and then we go from there looking at the prioritized rankings. Does that help explain a little bit? But ultimately, we're hoping that the capital budget and annual budget kind of go hand in hand each year. So that would just be another aspect to it. Go ahead.
okay. So in the production of the actual CIP document, it can be broken down into 3 major parts. The first part will be department heads and their staff determining whether or not their projects are even eligible for consideration. After this, after they've submitted their projects that are eligible, management staff and the finance director will select the projects they want to include in the CIP. And then finally, the final CIP document will be made with the project and all of their information. It is important to note that projects that are not selected to be a part of the 5-year CIP will be run throughout the year as funding or prioritization changes. So to emphasize or expand on that first step, they need to determine whether or not their project is eligible for consideration. So in order for a project to be eligible, it must be greater than $50,000 in cost, it must provide at least 5 years of benefit to the city, and it needs to be in addition to the city's assets. If the project is eligible, then the next step is to fill out a project request form. You all should have an example of a form that has been filled out. But essentially it contains details such as project title, the department, and who it is being submitted by. There is an area for a project description. This is where they will vouch for their project, explain what it is and why it's important. Underneath that, you have location, and then they will indicate whether or not the project is a part of a city commission strategic plan. So that includes the comprehensive plan, approved sewer and water studies, and it will also account for things that may be passed in the future, such as a downtown master plan or a parks plan or something of that nature. After that, on the left-hand side, you see an area for funding sources and year required. This is where they will break down the total project costs by phase, year, fund, and amount. And then on the right-hand side, there is an area to enter the CIP ranking criteria score. So, for the score, each project will be scored on 9 different categories. 4 of them are community-based and 5 are organizational. The 4 that are community-based reflect what the people deem are important to them, and this was discovered throughout the comprehensive planning process. The other organizational goals are important to the city from a more logistical viewpoint. Now if you go to the other packet, the papers. Yes, it's in the folder titled Gaming Community Investment Plan. The first 2 pages of that packet just go into more detail over the stuff I've already discussed. Starting on the 3rd page, we go into detail about the ranking criteria. So as I mentioned before, there are 9 total. All of them will be weighted equally, and they will all be scored on a scale from 1 to 5. So starting with public health and safety, if a project does not impact the public health and safety of the citizens, it will earn a score of 1, and that will go all the way up to a 5. So if the project does directly impact the public health and safety of the citizens, it will earn a 5. The next one is strategic initiatives and master plans. So that is the comprehensive plan, approved sewer and water studies, and future plans as well. A score of 1 means that the project does not relate to any of the plans. A score of 3 means it's included in at least one of them. And a score of 5 means it was included in at least 2 or more. The third one is economic development. If the project does not impact the economic development of the city, where if the project has a positive impact on the economic development of Canyon, it'll get a 5. It is very similar for 4, which is quality of life and image. If a project does not impact the quality of life and or image of the city, it'll earn a 1. And if it does, it will earn a 5. For regulatory compliance, if the project is not justified by a regulatory compliance, it will earn a 1. If it addresses a foreseeable or future regulation, it will earn a 3. And if it satisfies a current or scheduled mandate, it will earn a 5. For impact on operational budget, a score of 1 means that the project will have a negative impact on the budget. A score of 3 means that the project will be relatively cost neutral, and a score of 5 means that the project will have a positive effect on the budget or result in some form of savings. For cost sharing and external funding, a score of 1 means that the project will have less than 10% of its total costs come from external sources, and a score of 5 means that more than 90% of the project's total costs will come from external sources. For infrastructure, a score of 1 means that the level of needs of the system is low, and a score of 5 means that the level of needs of the system is rather high. It is important to note on this one that new infrastructure projects can only earn a maximum score of 3.
New is expansion, not existing.
Yes. And then for 9, which is timing and location, timing means will a project need to be completed before another project could commence? And location is, would it make more sense for multiple projects to be done together due to their proximity to one another? So if timing nor location are important, the project will earn a 1. And if both timing and location are important, it'll earn a 5.
And on the considerations and descriptions, we tried to be as clear as we could there. So that when you read those, when you read under the considerations, when you read that question, we tried to make those very clear, yes or no. Does it do this? Does it not do that? Knowing that as a department head, as I go through and read that, I'm like, well, sort of, kind of, maybe a little bit, not much, or, whatever. No, either it does or it doesn't. And we want to make that very clear as we go through and score those, so that everything is held to the same level of the same standard, or through the same consideration. And if you in the look at of course, Mr. Reese's projects are going to check a lot of these boxes highly, right? But there's going to be some other boxes there that he's not going to score as highly in. And Mr. Knoll in Parks, there's going to be some boxes that he doesn't score as highly in that, but he's going to score a little higher in the other, depending on how you look at. An example might be under Benicia would be with quality of life and image.
Yes. So, for example, on that one, a park facility would score rather high, whereas, say, a maintenance facility would score rather low.
Do we score these as a unit or individual?
So, department heads or their staff, whoever's filling out that request sheet, they will score the project. And then, since they are scoring it, they need to be able to justify it when it comes to the selection process.
We, as the administration, John and myself, and probably Joel, would review the scoring.
And they'll rise up. And we've played with these quite a bit, spent quite a bit of time just filling out, taking random projects, and we went through on 3 or 4 that were related to public works. And just based on my limited knowledge of what that project was, we scored them. And we had Dan come up and say, Dan, let's walk through this. You score these. And a couple we were really close, and some we didn't realize how important those projects were, so they moved a little higher. But for the most part, we were able to land right about where Dan would have scored them. And so I think the scoring is going to be fair enough to everybody, and not just an arbitrary number that it's going to cost. And we know there's going to be a lot of projects right here. We realize that, and that's where their importance on: are they part of the downtown master plan? Are they also part of the comprehensive plan? Are they in the water and sewer study? Because there's going to be some things that might check 4 or 5 of those boxes. And then as we do our strategic planning in October, they may check that box. Somebody might come in with a project that checks 5 boxes. Well, we know, obviously, we've been told by citizens, we've been told by staff and engineers, and we've been told by you all as commissioners that that's an important project. I guess that probably needs to score pretty high and be high on the list. And we'll hold ourselves accountable to that. Because if there's a project that we come to you all with, and it doesn't check any of those boxes, it's not part of any of those plans, and yet you all say, oh, well, we think this is important, well, then we need to have a discussion of how does it rank compared to all these others that these 5 plans have said are important. And you all say, we think it's as important as those. Okay, then good, it's going to score highly. But if it's not there, then there may be some consideration to say, well, it doesn't really fall into those 5 plans. I realize that it's something I'd like to do one day, but it looks like that's something we're going to wait on. So we'll use you all to help us make those decisions as we move on. Anything else on that scoring aspect of that?
No, I mean, it's like you were saying, it is very important, and I think it will help not only prioritize projects at the upper level, but within departments themselves, help them pick and choose what's most important to them.
I think it'll help all of us keep our eye on the prize instead of chasing rabbits every now and then. And I can do that at the department level or any level.
This is the first time. This is one of the things that came out of the comprehensive plan to do.
You know, just a thought on this morning, it sounds like you all are reviewing it, but I would think it would be important for you all not to just review it, but expectation there'd be some adjustments there too. I mean, if it's my department, I'm going to push, you know, that number of 1 or 2 and not, you know, trying to be dishonest, but I mean, you know, I'm gonna give it and be there for my department and my projects and my people, and that should be the job. But I think that it needs to be y'all's job that, okay, this one may be a 3 and not a 4, and to actually plan on making some adjustments.
And Venetia and I have done that. We graded these projects that she's gonna go over in just a minute. And then we went back and looked at how we graded them. We graded them separately, not in context of one another. And then we went back and said, well, I said, Venetia, this is more important than that. And so where did we grade that high and where did we grade the other one low? And we went and looked at those and we made adjustments. And 3 or 4 points here or there, and all of a sudden, in our minds, which would be senior management and you all, they fell where they needed to fall. But we did have to go back and look at those, and that'll be something that we'll do. I mean, that's our responsibility.
Yeah, that's our check on the balance. That's what we would do when it gets to Joel and I are looking at the financials, and then John kind of comes in, he's gonna help me on the ranking criteria, like some of that. So that would be his role. That's review those scoring. And change them if needed, period.
How does it work if, you know, we get to that meeting and really making those decisions as a city commission, and one commissioner says, man, I've had 3 public comments that this is something we really need to get done. It's not ranked very high over here, but I've had that, and say we've got several commissioners say, yeah, I'm getting the same. So there's something we need to dig in and address. How would that move forward as far as trying to put more problems in that?
Well, Sean and I would say there's always going to be the political human variable, and we know you are going to do that, whether it's high or not, and y'all have the luxury of doing that, you know, at the end of the day. I wouldn't recommend doing that on every project. There's going to be some outliers like that, and we fully expect that, but it's our plan together. And if we feel consciously that something needs to arise, you guys need to be able to step out of the criteria to make that ranking. You know, be whatever it is.
And you would have, before we came to you to adopt this, you would have already seen those things. We would have had some discussions with you as individuals, or you would have called Gary and said, I'm thinking about this. Or Cody's called, or Paul has said, hey, this is something, would y'all look at that? Because like the budget, we want to come in here prepared and be able to show you something, and you all say, that's exactly what we had in mind, and move forward with that. We'll give you plenty of opportunity to look at those.
There's like, we've already got a big listing of projects, and I don't want to dive too far into that, but there's like 90 projects just today. You know, and there's several that John and I haven't even got to dive into on facilities. So there are a lot to comb through to look at stuff. So the big thing today, we need direction from the body to make sure the ranking is good, so we can go ahead and start ranking the system. But there's always going to be that, if you want to move a project, you know, we fully expect you to nothing else to do that. So, but at least like John, go back to John's comment, we're trying to do a non-arbitrary way of ranking, where it's unbiased, as fair as possible. That's the goal here. That's the intent.
And we'll look at, because the things that make this list, we're going to dive into deeper. We're going to ask an engineering firm to start to tell us, give us some more accurate costs. We're going to start to create some sheets that are associated with these projects and say, we're moving forward. What does that project really look like?
Yeah.
And we'll spend money on those. These others on this list, we've got our basic ballpark idea of what they cost. We've got them scored, and they're just hanging on. All right. Now we have the next year. We do well. We have another $50,000 to put into that account or whatever that is. All right. Let's fill that in. We know there's going to be a lot of large projects, but we also know that some departments will come forward with smaller projects. They just meet the $50,000 criteria. So we may determine that, wow, we can get these done. I fall back to what Dawn and Evelyn always show us on that spreadsheet that they show us. It shows how they're funding all those projects, and some are rolling off and some are rolling on. And at times they have more funds because this project's rolling off, and we know that next year we're going to have additional funds to feed something else. Or they have a little gravy left. Well, then something else could pop up on the list.
For example, one of the things with facility-wise, we were talking with Janice, we need a new roof on the library. It's one thing we've been working on. Well, that's only $170,000. That's a small amount compared to the rest of these. And that's probably one where, we could probably do it a year or 2 years, just like Mel says, because it's a small piece. I want you to talk about the spreadsheet real quick, Anisha.
Okay.
Go over that. Everybody will pull that in front. This is just an example, y'all. So this is not rock and place here, but this is an example of how it kind of looks like.
Yes, this is an example of what it could possibly look at like. So it has a lot of the same details that were on that project text form. So things such as project description, its title, its department. Then you have, if it is a part of a strategic initiative, that will be listed. You'll put the CIP score and a projected total cost. Then you'll have funding sources and then previously approved funding. So an important thing to note on this is, say fiscal year 22 has passed and those funds have been approved and expended, that column will shift to the left towards previously approved funding, and a new column will be added for fiscal year 27. That way the CIP is always looking ahead 5 years.
So basically, each year we look at this, 1 year falls off and it moves, that funding moves to previously funding, and we just move on down each year. So we will evaluate this every year. We evaluate it every year and progress it together.
And then you can also indicate whether a project is an approved bond project, a potential bond project, or a potential tiers funding project as well. And then this doesn't show it, but then there would also be that list of potential ones that can be pulled from and then added to this main list as well throughout the year.
And things such as the CBDG grant would be listed as we need to be setting funds aside from that. Then we get the letter from them that says, hey, you're not approved for this. We know it's going to be another 2 years before we need that. That funding's freed up. We don't need to leave that money sitting there for a CBDG grant because we're not going to spend it for that. All of a sudden, we've got another project that we might be able to bump up or move something along quicker. Really modeled this a great deal after San Marcos.
Yes.
They have a massive spreadsheet. They are a utility operator, as in they have electricity and did they have gas also?
I believe so.
So they had a lot of revenue sources. Water is a revenue source for us. Well, they had a couple of 3 other sources for their revenue. So it makes quite an elaborate spreadsheet. But on the spreadsheet, what we tried to do is create a document that would enable us to sort in a million different ways. Because it'll be important to know when that project came on, and that's part of the project ID. So we'd be able to sort by, okay, what department has projects up there, on the list or on the 5-year? What year did they all come in? What are their funding levels? We want to be able to sort all of those things, specifically the lower projects, because it'll be time to start. If something falls off, it's time to move something up. We want to be able to sort those in many ways as we can, so that we can show you all and have quick answers for you. Where are we on that, or when did that project get first talked about?
If anybody has any questions, I could try and answer them.
I do. Did y'all sort this just based on the top half of the highest ranking CIP scores? Or is this all you?
This is arbitrary. We've kind of pulled these in. Some of these are projects that are actually going to be part of the budget that we're going to fund this year through our annual budget. But we've listed them over here.
Just for reference.
A couple or 3 others are just random ones that we put on here because we wanted you to see how they would score and how they would fit.
So what do you do with those that rank really low?
They're going to be listed in that group of 60 to 80, whatever those other projects are that haven't made the list. We will be coming to you all eventually with, here's the ones we think that should be in the CIP plan for the next 5 years. Is there anything down you you all are interested in bumping something up. Has anybody got any heartburn about anything that's up here? Gary's already said, well, I got 32 phone calls on this one. You agree with him? I think we need to move that up. Okay, which of these would you like for us to move down? 'Cause based on the funding that we've known for a year that we're gonna have. Because we've said, okay, we have $500,000. You tell, we've figured that out in October. Now we're coming around all the way to July, August, adoption of the plan. We know we have $500,000 to spend. You reshuffle those if you choose to, and we move forward on those $500,000 projects. Did that answer it all? Good.
Sort of.
What?
Everything on the list below is outside the 5 years. But they're projects that are in the queue.
And they'll always be seen, and they'll never go
And then we'll illustrate them, on paper. They'll be illustrated of other projects, Hey, these are projects that, we need to do. They didn't make the 1 to 5 years. It's always gonna be, there's always never gonna be enough money. We all know that. And some will be higher than others, so.
And will obviously these ranking criteria can change every time.
We're gonna adopt it. We're hoping you're gonna adopt that with us. That's our goal today.
And if, after we get through this first year or two, those need to change, we are more than happy to bring this back to the body and say, hey, listen, this criteria category is not really working the way we thought it would. We probably need to redo that.
So what strategic initiatives are you using right now to base that number on?
Comprehensive plan, the approved water and sewer studies that have been approved, and that's all we really have at this point in time.
Yeah.
So the next thing would be downtown master plan. When you all adopt that comes into the mix. Our strategic planning in October. If there's initiatives and things that come out of that will come into that mix. When we do our parks plan, when we do our thoroughfare plan, when we do our plan, all of those will come into play. And so then, oh gosh, now we've got these 8 approved. Maybe that number down there that says 2 or more, maybe that becomes 3 or more, 4 or more. We change that scoring based on the fact that we've got new information and additional things to base that on. And we looked at, again, multiple cities, ranging Bryan, not I was going to say Bryan College Station, but it was Bryan, San Marcos, 6 or 8 different places. And then Venetia looked at all of those, and Joe looked at those, and we looked at them and said, for the most part, they fall in about 6, 7, or 8 categories. Even though they were slightly different, we would take these 2 and morph them into economic impact, or morph them into something. And I really feel like we've covered the things that we've seen. And they had, some appeared to didn't have what engineering firm created them, and some of them had their stamp on it, as far as, obviously, those plans were developed by professionals, and others were just like it said city. So whether those professionals in-house did it or a firm did it or what, we couldn't tell. But we tried to create what would work best for us. And we were stuck on, if you notice, we have 9. And so we had to put our head around 9. It's like, oh, everything's got 10, it's got to be 100. No, it doesn't. Okay? And then we started off on scoring. Let's go to 1 to 10. And then we thought, okay, that's a lot of points. Does it really matter? We felt like we could get through the 1 through 5.
We thought simple was better. Simple or rudimentary was better.
Would be simpler for us to put together, and then easier for us to follow. No matter 1 to 10 or 1 to 5, scores we're still going to have a lot of scores here. We're going to have some outliers, but we know right here we're going to have a ton of scores. And that's where it's going to come into your professional staffs and your opinions and preferences and knowledge to separate those things.
And we'll see every one of these?
They will every one of those 80 will have one of these. Because that's how it's going to get on the list. That's why we tried to make this as thorough as possible, because we can still plug them in. They may not be part of that 5-year. Everything's going to be on this. Everything could be on a spreadsheet similar to this. There would be pages that could go by department or cumulative. Correct?
And And in all of the cities that we looked at, they also included all of their project request forms. So if you wanted to look at the sheet itself, you could.
And this would be, you would get that ballpark, maybe an estimate, but it's gonna be a ballpark cost there. And something may say it's 3 years, it'd be like, if we're talking about purchasing of land, and then doing something on that land, and designing something on that land, that might be 3, 4, 5 phases involved in that project. As opposed to this example we gave you, where if we're gonna put in wells, we probably need to go get the bond and have the money, and then put the wells in.
Phase for that. One of the ones that I changed, we were talking about police station, we're gonna need some facilities sooner rather. One of the things I indicated is, coming up, kind of like vetting, I put it into a 2-phase process. And John and I were talking, we did first would be land acquisition, phase 1 land acquisition and some design, then phase 2 would be construction. And so that's where city administration could get in and help. That's a hard one to just rip off the Band-Aid. If there's a possibility when we can phase that, slowly work it through that way, we can do that. We can push it.
But does this plan allow for, a great example, let's talk about the police station, some kind of facility for public safety. Well, let's say, things move fast sometimes and something comes open. Does this plan allow for us to make a quicker move to reallocate CIP funds if we needed to?
I think it's just.
Or are we kind of tied down to, wait, remember that ranking, we gotta wait for that, even though this may be really ideal.
It could be amended just like the annual budget.
Correct.
It could be amended, but that needs to, if we're gonna make a change like that, more than likely, we're gonna bring that to the body.
For sure.
And or hey, we've got some external funding that's come available for this or something else that's come about. We think we need to make a change here, we need to act quickly. The thing on this, well, it's on the list, so it's already planned out as a project. It's just, we've had this financial opportunity that's arisen it to another level. So in my mind, looking from the credit bureau stance, we're actively planning for this project and having that financial aspect come into play we didn't expect just helps make it better because we were already planning. So I think that gives us credence to good financial sound planning in that regards. That's one person I
And I think it allows you to hold us as staff more accountable, and it allows us to hold you more accountable. I'll throw it out there too. Because if we're gonna have a plan, if we all agree to a plan and we adopt that plan, then you need to hold us accountable when we come up and say, we wanna go this way. Then you say, well, I didn't, Cody say, I didn't know we were going that way. Why all of a sudden why did that rise up to that level? We owe you an explanation. We shouldn't surprise you. And then when one of you all says, hey, this thing down here, all of a sudden I need that up here. Well, let's talk about that. How did it get there? Why is that up there? But an accountability to our citizens and showing them that these are the things that we're committed to trying to get accomplished in the next 5 years. They know that they set a budget. They know that they have to change their budget when the car breaks down. But they also know that for the most part, if I stick to my budget, I got a plan and I can get the things done that I need to do. I can get back to the in-the-ground water storage tanks that we were that close to building, and then we did something great with it by putting some wells on Kim Road and buying some property and we did a better thing, so that's okay. But I need that to stay on the list so that I don't forget about it.
Venetia has done an outstanding job. She is 11 days out from being done with us, and we hate to see her go. She has been a breath of fresh air, so she's been really great. We're going to miss her. Hopefully we did not dissuade her from public service. Thank you, Venetia and John and all the directors for all the help and work they did. I'm excited for this. I put this on the supervisors and the directors. These guys are the experts. They need to tell me which projects we need to go for and those needs. And so I've set that out and I've set that tone with these directors in that regard. And that's the way it's going to go. We do have a listing of about 70 to 80 projects already written down that we'll go through, but anything moving to the list, we'll have this form to get put on to take a look at. So the goal, like John said, is we'd like to have the adopted ranking criteria happen tonight, and that'll allow us to move forward with all the projects we have and the ones we need to bring on to a rank and at your direction and our recommendation.
I like it. I think it takes the subjectivity out of a lot of this. I make a motion that we accept the CIP program ranking criteria as presented.
Second.
Have a motion to accept the CIP program and ranking criteria as presented. Is there any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, signify by raising your right hand. Opposed, like sign. Motion passes.
But make sure to tell Steve, this doesn't mean you're getting a police station, Steve. We
It's
just
on the
wanna
top
point
of
that
the
out.
list.
It's an
It's on
example.
the top of the list.
It's an example.
Draft.
Oh,
Draft
and then I got a
one.
consolation from Dan here. He gave a thumbs up.
Very good. But thank you, Benicia, for all the work that she's put in a ton of work, as Joe said, and she's done a really great job of consolidating all that and listening to an old man try to figure out what we're talking about and putting it all together.
I said, Nisha, half of what he says.
I'm driving her, and I'm trying to drive her.
Oh, I know. She's been great, you guys. I can't speak highly on her.
So, when's the expectation then that we have the first full list?
So we're gonna move forward with adopting this. The official list technically will be next coming year. We will start working on what funds we have available in October through September. I mean, October through November. Let me get that right. So it'll move around to next year. So this time next year, we'll be looking at the first capital improvement plan budget.
And there's some projects that we're gonna fund this year.
Right.
Like the extension of 18th Street. That's something that
And I listed that.
we're committed to.
Yeah, you can see I listed that on there. We funded part of that this fiscal year, and we're gonna fund the second half this next year. So some actual projects are on this list. So the actual CIP will be starting next year. Big around.
Once we know how much we've got, because we're not gonna guess. We don't wanna guess it. We've got $1 million to spend on projects, and so we put them all in there, and then come back and we have 600,000 in surplus, not $1 million.
And like John said, I'm gonna put it on you guys that there are some projects on here we will never fund by saving money. That we will have to go out for debt of either COs or GOs or revenue bonds, whatever, to do. More than likely, if we do, hypothetically, if we want to build a police station, that's probably gonna take tax-supported debt to do. And so, that's something we need to talk about in our regards, and that will be the recommendation on this, because, we build a $7, $8, $10 million police station, it's hard to save. It's gonna take 25 years to save up for that.
You can get that down to a couple million.
For a couple million, we'll just build them a little shack with cardboards and cardboard.
We can build it ourselves.
Yeah, there we go.
Project.
Yeah, I think we got that. Plywood, Gary said he's got some spare plywood at his house, we'll take that, just build it for the police station. Cody's got the barbed wire fence to put their cars in.
Yep.
Steve, we've got it figured out.
I've got some ideas. It's gonna be upwards of the 2 million area.
What else, Cody?
Made it to an auction.
All right, well, thank you all for your work on that. I know it's still a big project to come to, as we dig into it, part of it's, that's, a great step forward for our city. All right, item number 10, executive session pursuant to 551.074, personnel matters, city engineer, Brand Engineers. So, and with that, we got
I got 520 there.
5:20, and we will retire into exec session. And we will come back out and take care of some business.
Let's do a 5-minute restroom break so we can go on back.